We got a hummingbird that came on camera with us. But what's going on, insecticidal gang? It's been a long time since I actually been on camera. So, I just wanted to bring y'all just a video explaining some of the things I've learned, some tips and tricks, just some general care for Sarracenia, Venus Flytraps, and I guess you can throw Temperate Sundews into the mix as well. I'm gonna try to make this one quick because the sun is coming up. This is the morning time. I woke up in the morning to bring y'all this video, but it's gonna get hot in a second. But yeah, I just want to bring y'all some general care tips. I know it's 1,000 of these videos on the internet already, but I just wanted to give y'all my general care and just how I have changed the way that I raise these plants over the last 2 years that I've been growing them. So I get these ideas to do these videos from the various groups that I'm in with, especially the beginners groups, because of course beginners have the most questions and there's a ton of information out there. Some of it I think is dated. Some people may disagree, but again, this is my video. This is how I raise them. I don't know how much of the plants and stuff you can see in the background, but they're over there. So apparently something that I'm saying or I'm gonna say in this video is actually working. So first and foremost, sunlight. Right now, I'm standing in full sun. My yard gets full sun all freaking day. I live in a new subdivision, so we don't have trees, well, big trees yet. So it's gonna be a long time before the trees that they planted at our homes are big enough to start creating some shade out here. So for the carnivorous plants, that's not an issue at all. I will say, I want to stress this: you cannot get away from these plants needing sun. It's impossible. The only way you can is with a very strong grow light if you plan on growing them indoors. But again, that's not getting away from how much sunlight they need. That's just supplementing the sunlight that they need. They require full sun. For you to get plants to grow like these fly traps, for you to get them to grow like that, or you to get these Sarracenia pitcher plants to grow this way, get that kind of color, and also that growth habit, you need full sun. If not, they're gonna be thin, the leaves are gonna be limp, you won't get the color, you won't get the overall plant health that you need to keep these plants for years. Some of these plants are decades old and they've just been duplicated and passed out because people have raised them properly. So my number one thing, I always ask about the light when I see someone having an issue with these plants, because usually we try to cheat the sunlight rule. People think that full sun means, hey, I can stick it in my kitchen window where the sunlight hits that window for 3 hours a day and that's gonna be enough. No, it's not. You need to put that plant either outside under the full might of the sun, or like I said, under some strong grow lights. I use Viper Spectra P1000s on my Sarracenia seedlings, and they're doing great under those lights. So there are options for you to grow them indoors, but I like to always say that growing them outside is actually easier. Some people think keeping them in the house, putting them under lights and all of that stuff is easier, but then you start running into mold issues. You create more issues doing it that way. Now, if you're ready to tackle those issues, go right ahead, because some of us are tackling those issues. But my next point is going to be water. Now, I always found it interesting that when people have an issue with their plants, people comment on the water before the sunlight, when typically the problem is the light and not the water. So one thing I like to do as far as watering is concerned is I like to run a very low water table. Yes, I understand that these are bog plants, but they're not growing in a bog anymore. We're growing them in pots. So there has to be some level of care that they experience that's a little bit different than what they would experience out in the wild, letting Mother Nature take care of them. One thing I like to do, like I said, I like to keep a low water table, and I like to let that water table run out completely before I refill them, whether it be my indoor plants or my outdoor plants. What that looks like, I wait for that water tray to dry up, and then I wait a couple days, depending on how hot it is. Of course, you got to use your smarts. But I just pay attention to what the soil looks like. The peat takes a while to dry out, whether people realize it or not. The water tray is not gonna dry out and then your plant is dry in 30 seconds. Peat retains a ton of water. So what I've learned is I can sometimes go 4 or 5 days with no water in the tray, just letting that peat dry down a little bit. Now, last week we had the hottest week of the year. It was mid to high 90s every single day. Of course, that time window for how long they can stay without water in the trays shortens. I was probably putting water in them every 2 days instead of every 4. But as you can see, the plants survived. They have been surviving. I've been getting growth like this. And I mean, I've shown you guys the updates of my bogs and all of that good stuff. It's working. You get a lot of oxygen down to the roots. You get very strong root growth. And I noticed a very strong rhizome growth too. But as far as the actual water quality, reverse osmosis, distilled water, and low ppm water, just, all together. I use tap water. I know that's blasphemy in the hobby, but I use tap water because my city water comes out between, let's say 20 ppm and 40 ppm. For these plants, you typically want to stay 50 and under, but if you're growing your plants outside and you get regular rains, the rains flush in your pots. So if you have to go up to 75 ppm, 100 ppm water in your area, if you get adequate rainfall, it's really not that big of an issue because the rain's gonna flush your pots. Which brings me to my next point, top watering. I love to top water my plants. I've made videos about it before, but I love to top water my plants. That draws oxygen down through the soil into the roots, and they just seem to enjoy it. I've seen people say that you are not supposed to top water these plants, which makes no sense because they get rained on. But I won't hit on that because I already have. But yeah, I like to add in some top watering. They really seem to enjoy that. As far as water is concerned, I think that's about it. The next big thing that I see a lot of people stress about online, what soil to plant them in. And I'm here to tell you that you can pick pretty much any combination of peat, perlite, sand, blah, 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 that you want. The standard mix and the least amount of math is just 50-50. I like to say, keep it simple. Now, I'm one to experiment and play around with different mixtures, but you don't have to. You can do 50% peat moss, 50% perlite, and your plants will be perfectly fine. Right now, I've been going more 2-to-1, especially in my bogs, because they're designed to retain more water. You got 2-to-1 in mine, which is 4 parts peat, 1 part sand, 1 part perlite, which gives you a 2-to-1 ratio. But again, you don't have to get tricky with it. 50-50 works perfectly fine. Now that we're talking about soil, let's talk about pots. As you can see here, I have 2 different style pots here on the table. I actually have more styles, I just didn't put them on the table. And because it doesn't matter. These are both plastic pots. This is a 3.5 by 5 inch pot. This is a 5x6, if I remember correctly. It's either 5x6 or 5.5 by 6.5. Can't remember, but it's somewhere around there. But they're plastic pots. Plastic works best. Plastic is the easiest. When you start getting into like glazed ceramic and things like that, you can run into some troubles with mineral leaching. But instead of always worrying about the trouble, I just find a solution, which in one of my pots, I just put a liner in it. Because it was a big, pretty pot, and I wanted to put some Sarracenia in it. So I took a shower curtain from the dollar store, packed it in there, packed the peat in, I got a liner now. But yeah, plastic is the easiest. Now that we got past the pot, let's talk about your water tray that goes under the pot. I don't have any on this table, but I see people would put these plants in a bowl that's taller than the plant is. At the garden centers, Walmart, Target even sells them, Lowe's, they sell saucers that's like this high. You don't want the water, you don't really need the water ever to be higher than about that much. You just want that thing to suck some water down to the bottom of the pot. So I say get a 1-inch to a 2-inch tops, depending on the size of the pot. Like this pot, I could probably put a 2-inch saucer under it. But for these, 1 inch is fine. And you know, that keeps you from overwatering them, which is possible. If you ever pick a pot up and the peat stinks and it has a very pungent smell, it's because of the lack of oxygen in the pot, typically due to you keeping them way too wet. Like I said, I like to let them dry down just a bit before I re-water them, and that gives them a nice varying water table. But outside of that, I think that's pretty much it. You know, just some of the things that I've learned over time. I think the biggest one is to just leave the plants alone, which is going to be hard for all of us, including me, because when I cut this camera off, I'm going to be over here fiddling around with stuff. But when you leave them alone, they typically grow. Just make sure they have a little bit of water. You ain't messing with them all the time, and you'll get great growth. And it always surprises you when you come out and see, oh my God, this thing's got a whole new picture. It's got another picture. It's got another picture. Oh man, I didn't even realize that, because it's been 3 days since I came out and messed with it. So, you know, happy growing. I appreciate all the subscribers. We're almost up to 1,000. I'll see you guys later on the next plant update or whatever I decide to put out. If you guys have any questions, reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, which is typically the easiest. I try to get to my YouTube comments in a timely fashion, but Instagram and Facebook, I can typically answer in real time. I will see you guys later. And and again, got tongue tied. Thank you guys for subscribing.